Mr. President, members of the board, I am told we are live.
Thank you, Mrs. Wolf.
You're welcome.
The time is now 6:03, I believe, 6:05. I'd like to call this meeting to order. The board members are participating via Zoom meeting. I'd like to welcome those who are participating via Zoom and those watching the board meeting via live streaming. The link to the meeting is on the district webpage under Board of Education. The streaming will run through the end of the meeting. If the board is on break, the screen will fade to black and the sound will be muted. In the event there is a disruption in the audio portion, I will pause the meeting until it is reestablished. Mr. Vickers, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Thank you. Mr. Frank Otero, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Thank you, Mr. Otero. Mr. Stephen Otero, can you hear me?
I can.
Thank you, Mr. Otero. Mr. Hidon, can you hear me?
Yes.
Mr. Gibson, can you hear me?
I can.
We also have Ms. Chavez, Margot, Ms. Searmans, Mr. Baca, Anna, Ms. Olivas, John and Karen joining us via Zoom, and our wonderful captioner. Mr. Gibson, will you please announce the meeting?
I will, Mr. Smith. This meeting has been announced in accordance with the Open Meetings Resolution and is a legally constituted meeting of the Los Lunas Schools Board of Education.
Thank you, Mr. Gibson. I will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Gibson, have there been any changes or deletions to the agenda?
There are none, Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Gibson. I'll stand for a motion on the agenda.
Mr. President, I move that we approve the agenda as presented.
I have a motion by Mr. Vickers to approve the agenda as submitted by Mr. Gibson and the staff. I'll stand for a second.
Second.
I have a second by Mr. Frank Otero. Mr. Vickers, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Frank Otero, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Stephen Otero, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Eloy Hidon, how do you vote?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Brings us to item number 5, approval of the consent items. I'll stand for a motion on the consent items.
Mr. President,
Mr. Eloy Hidon.
I move that we approve the consent items as is.
I have a motion by Mr. Hidon to approve the consent items. I'll stand for a second.
Second.
I have a second by Mr. Frank Otero. Mr. Vickers, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Frank Otero, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Stephen Otero, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Eloy Hidon, how do you vote?
Yes.
And I vote yes. For the benefit of the audience, all agenda items have been reviewed by the board members individually. Consent items are the action items on the agenda presented by the superintendent and staff for approval. If no discussion has been asked regarding these items by any of the board members, the items may be submitted for approval with one motion vote. That will bring us to item number 7. Mr. Gibson.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. My update tonight will be fairly brief. I'm going to go over some of the items that I sent you on Friday in my regular Friday board update and add a couple of things. In general, the remote learning is moving along smoothly. We've, as I've said to you before, handled virtually all of the technology issues. We are working on solutions to some of the others, but we continue to move along. One of the things you asked me about a couple of weeks ago was having some more high school electives. I worked with both Principal Darian Jaramillo from Los Lunas High School and Albert Aragon from Valencia High School, and I'm pleased to tell the community that we have some new electives available. excuse me, in both schools, we have JROTC available, JROTC 1, 2, 3, and 4. We have band available in both high schools. We have team sports in both high schools, and those are classes that have generally been offered for athletes. And then at Los Lunas High School, we have video production 1, 2, and 3 available. And at Valencia High School, we have Project Lead the Way Biomedical. So we have some new electives for students who want to take more credits. They are available in the afternoon after the core curriculum is being delivered, and all will be done by 2:20. Along that same line, we have permission to begin athletics. Now, they're not athletic practices in the normal sense of our teams practicing out on a field. They are what we were doing earlier in the summer. So our athletes can meet with their coaches in a 5-student to 1 coach ratio, maintaining social distancing. And these meetings are for conditioning and drills related to whatever the sport is, but they are not practices. Those are not allowed to reconvene yet. If the governor and the secretary changes their mind on athletic practices, I certainly will inform you. So those are kind of 2 related things at our high schools. We also had an opportunity late last week to pick up 5 pallets of PPE provided with CARES money by the Department of Ed. We sent folks from our maintenance department to pick up those pallets. They include gloves, face shields, cloth masks, 3 for every adult and 2 for every student, some close contact kits, and some hand sanitizer. Brian Baca coordinated that pickup. We picked up not only for ourselves, but we picked up for the other schools in Valencia County. So we've delivered some of those on a ratio basis to Berlin and some to SOTA, the charter school in Los Lunas. So we have more PPE to go with what we already had, which was significant to begin with. The one major change that I was going to talk to you a little bit about, as I said to you in my update last Friday, the United States Department of Agriculture relaxed its guidelines for free and reduced lunch, returning to the option of all students receiving food free of charge from the district, which means that we do not have to collect money from anybody, but we can distribute food to any of our students and their families. Today, I met with the cabinet, as I always do on Tuesday, and we talked about ways to potentially feed more of the community. And then later in the morning, we met with Mark Garcia, our Director of Transportation, and Jamie Herone, who is our Assistant Director of Food Services. Angela Haney, our Director, is on vacation this week. We talked about identifying families in the community that might be dealing with food insecurity. We know that there are a lot of people that haven't gone back to work. We know that from the news media that there may be some food insecurity in our community. So I emailed all of the principals today and said, can you please tell us about any families you know that are dealing with food insecurity? And we talked with Mark about using our bus drivers to drive into parts of the community where there is food insecurity, with our cafeteria folks on board to distribute the food. We also talked about using those buses that are now all outfitted with Kajits, which are remote internet connection devices, to be able to provide more focused internet service to those families that lack internet communication. So we're looking at using our bus drivers to go out into some of the remote areas of the community that don't have internet access, places where there might be food insecurity, and provide food directly to families without having them have to come to one of our food distribution sites, and at the same time being able to provide more internet access in the community. So we're going to, I heard back from probably 2/3 of the principals today. I'm sure I'll hear back from the rest tomorrow, and we'll decide whether this is a viable solution. to send our buses out into the community to distribute food in those places where it's needed, and internet access more specifically connected to where families can get to it. So we continue to look at those kind of issues. Our staff continues to work hard. Remote learning is going well. There are, of course, a few issues, and when I hear about those issues from parents, I try to get back to them within 24 hours and provide feedback on how we might be able to solve whatever problems we have. So generally, I think it's going well, and we continue to deal with issues as they come up. So I will be happy to answer any questions that might come from the board.
Mr. President,
Mr. Stephen Otero.
just a couple of things. Mr. Gibson, too many times I think we're forgetting about Century High School. Does Century High School have any offers for elective classes as well?
They already had electives. I should have mentioned that, Mr. Otero. Century also already has electives. Their program is through the Apex Learning System. So there were already a number of electives on their curriculum. But thank you, I should have mentioned that.
Okay, and then the second thing is I know that we're in remote, and we pretty much at this point decided to stay on remote unless there was a drastic change between now and December. But is there plans going on to live teaching when the time comes? Are you guys getting ready for that as well?
Well, we haven't gotten ready yet, but we did talk about it at this morning's cabinet meeting. If things as you've seen in the news, the number of COVID infections has gone down fairly substantially in New Mexico. If that continues to happen, we've all said to the secretary and to the governor, we need a couple of weeks' notice, but we will begin to plan, because if things continue in the same direction, we may very well go back to a hybrid schedule. That said, as I've said to you before, a hybrid schedule comes with its own issues. The size of the classrooms, social distancing, the number of students that we can transport. Again, it would depend on the governor's direction about social distancing, about how many students we could have on a bus and in what configuration. So if those, we were prepared a month ago to do hybrid learning. We had a schedule which we presented to you. Depending on what kind of adjustments might be made, we think we need 2 weeks to do that planning. So we're ready to begin. We've really emphasized to the governor and the secretary, don't just drop this on us and say you're going to do it next Monday. We need a couple of weeks to plan.
Okay, and I just have one more follow-up question. In reference to our staff that's attending or going to the workplace, have we tried to accommodate them? And I know we bring this up and you're probably tired of hearing it, in reference to keeping them safe with plexiglass shields or anything like that. What's been done for those staff members that are occupying their space at this point in time?
So some teachers are working out of their classroom. I would say it's 5 to 10 people a day. We take their temperature as they enter the building. They have to come in with the masks. We have face shields for those people that feel like they need them. The only places where we're using plexiglass, and they're little plexiglass, containment units, I guess you'd call them, cubicles, where we're doing one-on-one special ed testing, we're using those. But in none of the rest of the places in our buildings are we using plexiglass.
Yeah, I guess my question is more directed to your secretaries, your office, the people that are occupying the office that are having to deal with several people asking for the accommodations. Are we trying to accommodate them with their requests?
We're accommodating them with masks and face shields, sanitizer, all of those kinds of things. We have not put plexiglass any place in the district other than in those special ed places where we're doing testing.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Otero.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Vickers.
I had a couple of questions regarding sports. NMAA has authorized schools to compete in volleyball, golf, and cross country. And I really hadn't seen anything about whether or not we are going to be participating in those sports?
Yes, we are.
Okay.
I don't know if we have a golf team. I know volleyball and cross country we do. Brian or Susan, does anybody know whether we have a golf team?
Yes, sir, we do, but we play golf in the spring, but we do have a golf team.
Okay.
Right. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Vickers. No more comments?
Mr. President,
Mr. Hudon?
Mr. President, members of the board, Mr. Gibson, you made me feel really good when you guys started talking about the free lunch program and the reduced lunch. Not so much that it's going to be free, but we're addressing that. And you're including Mark Garcia and your staff on that. And you're going to come up, I mean, you're being proactive right now and you're getting a plan on what I'm hearing is you're going to get out and distribute those at maybe bus stops or sites, or I don't know what your solution is going to be, but I want to thank you on that effort. And I hope you guys run with that one and keep it going, because I really think that's one portion that if we can take those free lunches to those sites, that's another way to find some of these students that are having trouble logging on and enrolling or whatever we have to do, but that's another way to tap into some of those students. So I really think that's a good plan. I hope in a couple of days you can come up with another update on that for us, but keep up that good work. I like that one.
We are going to meet again on Friday. So when we have data from the schools, knowing where we may have some needs, we're going to meet again on Friday and develop a more complete plan to deal with that.
Okay, because I mean, you can tap into the remote learning, the hotspots,
Exactly.
making sure who's enrolled, who's not enrolled.
Yep.
The other one was going to be athletics. And I seen a blurb today from the lieutenant governor saying that he's going to hold these school boards accountable for making sure we abide by our guidelines. And I know we're in a 5-to-1 ratio, and right now it's only conditioning. We may compete. I don't know. We may or may not compete. I don't know where we're going to be there. I'm all for, I mean, I'm a sports guy, really believe in that. But I have one question here, and I hope I frame it right. We have a protocol that for a student athlete that if he competes and he's not eligible in the grades, that coach is held accountable in a certain manner. If we have a student athlete competing outside of our boundaries, there's protocol and that coach is held accountable. What I want to make sure is we have a protocol set that we hold these coaches accountable for the guidelines set forth right now. I mean, it's 5-to-1. I know just to want to compete, they're going to want to push that envelope a little bit, but we need something set where they're held accountable, because this isn't a game anymore where we win or lose. Kids out of district. This is a health and welfare of our student athletes. So if we can figure something out there, I hope you understand where I'm going with this.
I understand exactly what you're saying. And
Okay.
we will, of course, require coaches to follow those guidelines. The other thing, and I can't say that I looked at it in any detail today, but guidelines came out from NMAA. I got an email today about academic eligibility. It's complicated, obviously, because kids were not in school all last spring, but there are some guidelines for academic eligibility. We have them. I know that Athletic Director Holland and the coaches and the principals will follow those. So those came out today. I can send them to you if you'd like. I actually didn't really look at them that carefully, but they do define how we're going to allow kids to be eligible to participate.
Okay. And the only reason I brought that up is just because what the lieutenant governor said, if I know we have a risk management insurance, if we're doing everything right, we're covered there. But if we deviate from that, it's going to be on us. So that's the only reason I brought that up. And one other thing, I want to make sure I heard this the right way. Your IEPs, they're being conducted right now in like
They are.
what kind of a format? I mean, you said like a pass fail.
Some are being done remote, some are being done in person. Depends on the on how likely we are to get the good data that we need from a remote environment. But we are required, as you know, by statute, to reevaluate all students that are required to be reevaluated, and that is in process.
Okay.
Susan, do
Thank
you
you, Mr. President, members of
want
the
to
board.
add anything about that, Susan?
No, you covered it, Mr. Gibson.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board.
Hey, Mr. Hidon. Any more comments?
Mr. President,
Mr.
Frank
Frank
Otero.
Otero.
I really don't have any questions. I just want to say that I, support the process. I support, you as the board, and I support Mr. Gibson and his staff. I think that this has kind of been a moving target as we go along, and everybody's kind of keeping things in check as far as I can tell. And yeah, we do have some issues out there, and I wish we could just wave a wand and take care of them all. But they're all issues that we all face, and a lot of children face on a daily basis. So I support what y'all are doing, and there's some people that still have a little anxiety. There's some people that are chomping at the bit, and I can see the point on both sides. So right now we'll take it a day at a time, and that's really all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Otero. So I just have a couple of comments, Mr. Gibson. I'm glad that we're bringing back electives and that we've had them at Century High School. And I'm really glad that we can do the 5-on-1 sports. I really think it's important for us to get focused on some sort of normalcy, if that's even the right word to use in the situation we're in, but something that shows that this is all going to get better. And these little things that we do by adding this 5-on-1 stuff and adding the electives and stuff, I think it's encouraging to us as a district and as a community, to our staff and to our students, that look, we will get through this together. So I for one am glad that we're doing that stuff, absolutely with due diligence to make sure that we are following all the letters that we're supposed to do. But I think it's awesome for our coaches to get involved now. And a lot more of our staff. I think it's great what we're doing, and I'm really glad to see this stuff start happening. I, for one, am going to need a little bit more than 2 weeks if the governor says open school tomorrow, though. Just going to throw that out there. Other than that, are there any more comments from the board members? Perfect. Then thank you, Mr. Gibson. This item here is a report. Was somebody going to say something? No? This item is a report only. No action is needed or warranted. That will bring us to item number 10, announcement of meetings. As allowed by the Open Meeting Act and District Open Meetings Resolution, on occasion, a quorum of board members attend the same function, including those held at school sites, at the district level, as well as sports functions, conferences, workshops, and trainings. Board members will refrain from discussing and/or acting on board issues in those settings. In addition, only official meetings are published, and if other meetings are scheduled, they will be announced in accordance with the Open Meetings Act. I would like to announce the following meetings. On September 10th, there is a Finance Committee meeting held via Zoom at 4 p.m. On September 10th, there will be a board work session, time to be determined after the Finance Committee meeting. That meeting is not listed on this agenda as it was added after the agenda was already published. On September 16th, there will be an Audit Committee meeting at 9 a.m. in the conference room. I believe that's going to be held via Zoom as well. And on September 22nd, there will be a regular board meeting held via Zoom at 6 p.m. Again, all these meeting locations and times and stuff are going to be dependent on mandates from the governor. If need be, they will be held via Zoom. If something drastic happens, we will try to get them in person. That being said, that will bring us to item number 11, adjournment. I will stand for a motion to adjourn.
I so move.
I have a motion by Mr. Stephen Otero to adjourn.
Hidon.
Mr. Hidon to adjourn, sorry. I will stand for a second.
I'll second that.
I have second by, sorry, I wasn't watching. David Vickers?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Vickers. I have a motion by Mr. Hidon and a second by Mr. Vickers to adjourn. Mr. Vickers, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Frank Otero, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Stephen Otero, how do you vote?
Yes?
Mr. Eloy Hidon, how do you vote?
Yes.
And I vote yes. The meeting is adjourned 6:28. Thank you all.
Thank you.